And I'm not going to lie, that first time I took myself out to dinner, I went to one of my favorite restaurants. It's one that me and my kids go to all the time. I was actually terrified and I felt really awkward. I had never done this before. I was hyper aware of everyone around me, convinced that they were all just staring at me, thinking, oh my gosh, look at this poor woman, she's alone. Welcome back to the Becoming You podcast. I am your host, Lisa Hardie, and I just want to start by saying thank you so much for all the love, the messages, and the support after hearing episode 1. Hearing that so many of you resonated with that feeling of losing yourself, of putting everyone else first, it reminded me exactly why I started this podcast. And I am just so thrilled that you guys are tuning in. And if you haven't listened to that one yet, I shared a bit of my story on how I ended up here, the space of rediscovering growth and self-love. And today we're diving into one of my favorite topics. And it is one that really just completely changed how I see myself and how I show up for myself in my own life. And that is the concept of dating yourself. And I know that might sound funny at first, but trust me, this one is really going to hit home because learning to date yourself is just one of the most powerful relationships you will ever build, right? It's the most important relationship you will ever have, and that is the one with yourself. So I hope you stick around for today's topic because it is one that I know that once you get a little bit past the fear and the idea of doing things alone, and we're going to talk about this, we're going to dive right in, it will fundamentally change your life for the better. But when I do say date yourself, I don't mean just grabbing a cup of coffee alone, right? I don't mean just binge watching a show in peace by yourself. Though, let's be honest, those things are good. But dating yourself really means intentionally spending time with you, not out of obligation, but out of, that curiosity, out of care and out of love. It's all about getting to know you, who you are as a person without all that sort of background noise that we often get in our heads. It's sitting down and saying to yourself, what do I actually enjoy? What makes me feel alive? What makes me laugh? For years, I didn't even know the answers to these questions. My identity was wrapped up in everyone else's needs, and I've forgotten what I actually liked. And if someone asked me what I wanted to do in my free time, I'd really freeze because honestly, I didn't know. I was working full time. I was running a part-time business, though the part-time business was crafting and card making. I did love that, but I was also running it as a business. And I did eventually lose joy for that. So that is when I really realized something important. If I didn't know myself, how could I ever expect to feel fulfilled, loved, or confident? And that's where the idea of dating myself came in. I started small, coffee dates alone. And I know I just mentioned that it's not just about that, but we'll get into that. But walks with no destination without my phone, of course, unless I had the music on, and sitting in a restaurant by myself. And oh my goodness, that one was really hard. And I'm not going to lie, that first time I took myself out to dinner, I went to one of my favorite restaurants. It's one that me and my kids go to all the time. I was actually terrified and I felt really awkward. I had never done this before. I was hyper aware of everyone around me, convinced that they were all just staring at me, thinking, oh my gosh, look at this poor woman, she's alone. But you know what? Nobody cared. Nobody was staring at me. No one was looking over. Everyone was just doing their thing, which is, what I was there to do as well. I was there to spend time alone and enjoy myself. And once I got that, once I got past that wave of initial discomfort, I really felt something else. And that was a little bit of peace. And I remember this date, this self-love date, this solo date at the restaurant. And I had a really great time by the end of it. I also went for a walk on the beach and grabbed an ice cream on that walk. And it was just an amazing feeling of peace and joy. And, a bit, that sense of confidence that I hadn't really felt in years. And here's the truth. Here's something I want you to remember. The discomfort isn't a sign that you're doing something wrong. In fact, it's just a sign that you're stepping outside of your comfort zone. We're so conditioned to attach our joy, our worth, and even our identity to other people, like our partners, our kids, our friends, that when we do take time for us, it can feel almost a little foreign, almost rebellious in a way. But here's what I've learned, and I really want this to sink in for you listening as well, is that the relationship that you have with yourself actually sets the tone of the relationships that you have in your life. When you date yourself, you start showing up differently for others as well. You make decisions from love instead of fear. You stop settling for crumbs because you realize that you deserve the whole damn cake. So I want to talk about what actually happens when you start dating yourself, right? You're thinking, okay, might sound kind of cool, but what actually happens when you start dating yourself? Well, first, you learn what makes you happy without needing anyone else to provide it. You're not seeking any external validation. You're not asking others for their opinion. And that is such a powerful thing. Second is that you build confidence. Every time you do something alone, whether it's going to a concert, which I'll be doing in December, whether it's hiking or even going for a brunch by yourself, you prove that you are enough. And third, and this is a big one, is that you reconnect with your intuition. You start to hear that quiet voice inside you, the one that's been buried under all of the noise, and she finally has a chance to speak. She knows what lights you up, what drains you, and what feels right. And, when I started doing this, something really unexpected happened as well. I stopped chasing that validation. I stopped waiting for someone else to make me feel special. I stopped waiting on others to make plans. Me and my friend group all the time joke how it's so hard to get everyone together because everyone's busy and got kids and got jobs and, have other friends, but it's hard for us to get the core group together because everyone's busy. But just because you can't get together doesn't mean you can't do the things that you want to do. If you want to go to a concert and no one is available, buy the ticket yourself. I actually just did this. I'm going to go see the Jonas Brothers in December. It will be my first concert by myself, and I will probably feel a little awkward, and it will probably make me a little bit uncomfortable. But guess what? Everyone's there for the same reason, to have a really good time and listen to some great music. If you're a Jonas Brothers fan, of course. And let me tell you, you know, because you're not waiting for someone to make you feel special, you're already doing that yourself. And let me tell you, when you get to that place, your relationships shift too. You attract people who meet you where you are. You stop tolerating things that don't align with your worth, and you start to glow differently. And I've had people tell me this as well. That's what dating yourself does. It actually changes your energy, your confidence, and your peace. Now, you might be wondering, this all sounds great, but is there any real science behind this, or am I just talking a lot about feel good stuff? The good news is that there is research and it backs up what I've lived and what I've seen in others as well. And there are a few things that I have on my screen that I'm going to share. For example, a study by the American Psychological Association found that solitude, when it's chosen, so when you decide to take time in solitude, it can actually help regulate your negative emotions like anxiety, stress, and anger. And according to an article in Very Well Mind, the benefits of alone time improve self exploration. That's finding what makes you happy, what brings you joy, increase creativity. Because what I found also is that your willingness to try new things actually increases and you have better emotional regulation. And a survey have found that actually 56% of people believe alone time is very important for their mental health. And another study emphasizes that the motivation behind alone time matters. When solitude is self chosen and aligned with our values, the benefits are just enormous. And what all of this tells us is that when we intentionally date ourselves, when we choose it, when we show up, when we lean into that discomfort, we're actually doing something deeply supportive of our mental, emotional, and relational health. So it's not just a nice idea, it's something our brain and our heart actually responds to. And I want to be real with you in that this isn't easy, especially if you've never done this before. You will have days where you may feel lonely, where you question what you're doing, where old patterns will try to pull you back into distraction and people pleasing. You might even have moments where being alone makes you feel really uncomfortable, and that is normal. The silence can be too loud. And that's when I tell people the discomfort is only temporary. If you can get comfortable with being uncomfortable, your life will change. The quiet is where you learn to listen. The stillness is where you meet yourself again. And both of those are so important in this process. And once you really sit with yourself, even when it's messy, because it's bound to get messy, you start to build a relationship based on truth, not performance, because you're not performing for anybody. You're not trying to act like someone else to please other people. And you also realize that you don't need to earn the rest. You don't need permission to take up the space, and you certainly don't need somebody else to validate your worth because you are enough just as you are right now. So if you're listening right now and thinking, okay, Lisa, I want to try this, but I have no idea where to start, here are a few ideas. Start small. It's that simple. Take one small step. One small step is still progress and leads to bigger things. And make a list of what you love or what you used to love before life got so busy. And then I want you to schedule one solo date this week. It could be grabbing a coffee, go sitting at a Starbucks or your favorite local coffee shop. It could be taking a walk at sunset or going to a local Christmas market by yourself. And I want you to leave your phone in your bag. Okay, I know this could be hard. Guilty as charged is hard for me too, but the goal is really to be present with yourself fully. Afterwards, take time to reflect. How did it feel? What came up for you? What did you enjoy? And what did you not enjoy? And remember, it does not have to be fancy. The magic is all in the intention. You're showing up for yourself. You're showing yourself that you matter enough to spend time with. And when you start doing this consistently, you're going to notice changes. And it's going to be subtle at first, but it will be powerful. You'll start to feel lighter, more confident, more in tune with what you want. You'll stop apologizing for taking up space, and you'll discover parts of yourself that you just forgot existed. Passions, dreams, joy, they will start to resurface. And maybe most beautifully of all is that you're going to fall in love with your own company. You'll realize that you can create your own joy. That peace isn't something you chase, it's something you cultivate. And that is the gift of dating yourself. So here is your challenge this week. I want you to plan one solo date. Just one, just one. It doesn't have to be elaborate. It doesn't have to be this big fancy thing. It could be taking yourself out to lunch, going for a walk in a new place, or trying something you've always wanted to do, but maybe kept putting it off. And while you're doing it, I want you to notice how you feel. Notice the thoughts that come up. Notice the moments that maybe make you feel a little awkward or the moments that make you smile because you realize, hey, this actually feels really good. And the goal isn't to be perfect, right? It's just to be present. You're not waiting for someone to be ready or choose you anymore because you're choosing yourself. And that is so powerful. And if you want a little extra support for this, I do have a 10 ways to date yourself workbook that really walks you through the process with prompts and reflection questions. And it gives you 10 ideas to date yourself, whether it's skating or going on a weekend getaway. and some other small things. But even if you never touch that, I want you to just think of an idea and really just make it your own, because you deserve to experience what it feels like to fall in love with your own life again. And I really hope that when you schedule your date with yourself, I want you to put it in your calendar, whether that's in your phone or you have a paper calendar. I want you to keep that promise that you will show up. Treat it as if it was an appointment, a doctor's appointment. You wouldn't ghost a doctor's appointment. Let's not ghost ourselves either. So thank you so much for spending this time with me today. This topic is really close to my heart because it was truly one of the biggest turning points in my life of my own self-love journey. And if you love this episode, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, review the episode or the podcast, or share it with a friend who might need this message. Next week, we're going to talk about something that I know so many of us struggle with, and that is the guilt that can come with putting ourselves first and how to finally release it. Until then, remember, you are worth showing up for, always. Thanks for joining today, and I'll see you next week.